Hi everyone, Miss Brocker here. Our learning target for today is we will convert between decimal and fraction values. We're going to start by converting fraction values to decimal values. We did this in class and a lot of you found a lot of success with this, so I'm excited for you to review it this week. We're going to start with our first fraction right here, which is 2/10. Now, when you read that as a fraction, because we know that decimal place value can be made into tenths and hundredths and thousands and 10,000s, if you have a denominator that is one of those place value holders, decimal place value holders, then all you need to do is think about looking at your decimal place value chart. Now, on Friday, I asked you to make a decimal place value chart when we were working on converting from different representations of decimals, such as standard form, word form, and expanded form. So if you haven't done that yet, please do that. I'm going to talk about those decimal place values a whole lot. And if you don't have one of those in front of you, I think it'd be a really good idea. Okay? We are not going to do that together, make a decimal place value chart. So this first one again, 2/10. Think about how you read that as a fraction. How you read that as a fraction is exactly the same way that you are going to put that as a decimal, because we know that decimals and fractions are each part of a whole. And I know that my first place value holder right to the right of my decimal is my tenths place. And again, look at that fraction. How many tenths do we have? We have 2/10. Okay, pretty easy. Don't have to use any division there. Now we're going to move on to the next one. And I'm going to read that fraction out loud. 627. And I'm going to read my denominator of 1,000. 627 1,000ths. Again, because I know that my decimal place value holders go from, trying to make a decimal point there, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Might be a good idea to even put those placeholders in before you plug your values in. Then go back to reading your fraction. How many hundredths do we have? Thousands do we have? We have 627. Remember how we read decimals? We read that last place value holder last after our numbers. So 627 thousandths. Okay, now the other two that are on the screen are going to be a little bit more difficult. As you notice, they do not have denominators of either tenths or hundredths or thousands or 10,000s or 100,000s or millions, those decimal place value holders. So instead, we have to do something a little bit different with these. We have to use division to find the equivalent decimal to that fraction. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we are going to divide, and it's going to feel a little bit weird right away. We are going to divide our numerator, 3, by our denominator. Okay, and what we're doing, we're not trying to see how many times that 3 can go into 5. We are dividing our numerator by our denominator to see this equivalent decimal. Now, you might notice right away and say, hey, wait a minute, Miss Brocker. I see that my divisor, the number that's doing the dividing work, is larger than the dividend, or the number we're breaking up into pieces. And yes, that should be that way. That's a way you can check that you're using fraction division to find a decimal, because you should know I cannot put 5 into 3. I cannot break 3 up into 5 equal groups and have a whole number quotient or answer. So right away, here's what we practiced in class. If you cannot do this, you are going to put a decimal in your quotient. And that decimal point right there is like you signing that contract saying, I know I cannot break 3 into 5 equal pieces and have a whole number answer. Once you do that, and I like to do my little arrow here, I'm going to put a 0 in my dividend, okay? Now I'm going to ask myself, how many times can 30 be divided by 5? And that answer is 6. So I'm going to put that up in my quotient. And then I'm going to kind of check here until I get to a 0. 5 times 6 is 30. And nothing left over, okay? So 3/5 is equal to 6/10. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with our last fraction to decimal here. Now again, we have 7/9. Ninths are not a decimal placeholder, so we have to use division to figure out that equivalent decimal to 7/9. So I'm going to take my numerator, I'm going to put it inside of my division box, and I'm going to divide 7 by 9. Think about this fraction bar here as division. Sometimes you see me write fractions on your assignments like this. because this is the same thing as 7 divided by 9, part of a whole, okay? So right away, you should know you can't break 7 up into 9 equal groups and have a whole number answer. Put your decimal in your quotient. Bring down your arrow and your 0. 9 goes into 70 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. Then I'm going to subtract here, and I'm going to get 7. Okay, and again, I'm not going to put remainder 7 or put 7/9 as my leftover piece. We've already got decimals here, so now I'm going to bring down another 0. And I know that 9 goes into 7 times, and that's 63. So once you get to this point, that was meant to be a subtraction sign right there. Once you get to this point, a bunch of you are saying stop, and you are recognizing that we could keep doing this forever. This is going to be a repeating decimal. So there's where you put that little line over. I'd like you to usually go to your hundredths or maybe possibly even thousands. We just went to thousands. Thousands would be a good idea before you can recognize that repeating decimal. And that's it. So 7/9 is equal to 777,000 repeating. Okay, now we're going to move on to decimals, 2 fractions. And a lot of you, when we did this in class, you were like, Miss Brocker, this is so easy. And once you know a decimal place value, and you know the names of those place value holders, then I think it is. It's much easier than doing that division with decimals in your quotient. Okay, so let's start with our first one. Think about how you would read this decimal value out loud. You know that the last placeholder is going to be the name that you call it. So think, I know my decimal, I have tenths and then hundredths. So now I'm just going to say the number. 100 is going to be my denominator. And how many hundredths do you have? You have 24 hundredths. And that's it. Okay, next one. I know that my first place value holder to the right of the decimal is tenths. So that is going to be my denominator. And then look at this decimal again. How would you read that out loud? 7 tenths. You have how many tenths? 7 of them. Okay, next one. And again, I would really hope that you could make a decimal place value chart for you to have in front of you while we're doing this. Tenths, hundreds, thousandths. So I'm going to read that number out loud, just like you'd normally read a standard form number. But I know that my denominator is going to be 1,000 or thousandths. Okay, 368 thousandths. Okay, and we'll just keep rolling on these. Next one, I'm going to read this decimal out loud. Remember, we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So whatever I say, that number that looks just like standard form number, I'm going to say 409. And then whenever that last place value holder is, that's going to be your denominator. So we already said that was thousandths. So 1,000 is your denominator, and you have 409 thousandths. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier. So let's kind of count our place value holders here. Tenths, just trying to draw a line there. Hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Okay, so that's going to be my denominator is going to be 10,000. And my numerator is going to be how many of those 10,000ths I have. So if I read this out loud, I'd say 235 10,000ths. 235 10,000ths. Okay, last one here. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. Oh, wow. Okay. So that means our denominator is going to be 100,000. And our numerator is just going to be us saying this number out loud. Now, all of our other ones have been in the hundreds or saying 409, 235, 368. But you can see here we have more than 3 digits. So we're going to call this 12,843 hundred thousandths. And that's it.